As the Kansas City Chiefs wrap up the first week of training camp, today we will discuss the rotation that the offensive line went through this week. As well, we do have some key injury updates to discuss, but before we do dive into any of that, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video, as I will keep you up to date on all the latest Kansas City Chiefs news and rumors that you do not want to miss out on. Without further ado, let's dive right into this video. With the absence of Orlando Brown Jr. throughout training camp because of his holdout of a new contract extension, this put the Kansas City Chiefs in a situation to where they basically get to explore all their options on the offensive line. As Coach Reed mentioned on the first day of training camp, they will have a rotational period at the left tackle position to see who could fill in that void during training camp and preseason, and if Orlando Brown's holdout tends to go into the regular season, if they can find a valuable backup starter to hold his place during that time, they will look throughout training camp. And to start training camp, they threw in Roderick Johnson at the left tackle position. Now, a lot of us aren't familiar with Roderick Johnson, neither am I. I do know his last visit was with the Houston Texans, and when they mentioned rotation, we thought this would be a day-to-day thing where maybe Roderick Johnson would get one day, and then it would go to the likes of maybe a Joe Thuney, who Andy Reid mentioned earlier in camp, saying, hey, if we have to, we'll put Joe Thuney there because he has played valuable snaps there before, even though he is a left guard, or maybe like an Andrew Wiley. But the first half of the week, it belonged to Roderick Johnson, and he was making himself a case for a valuable backup position there, and that he could fill in. He was impressing the coaches throughout training camp, and it looked very well. And what we were seeing was, is this really a rotation, even though he is keeping his spot, at least for the first half of the week? Well, we got our first rotation coming in this week, and it kind of surprised a lot of people. Maybe not for the best, but today we got our first switch up at the position with Andrew Wiley playing the left tackle position and moving Roderick Johnson to the right tackle. Now, this brings a lot of bad memories because for all Chiefs Kingdom on, we know the last time Andrew Wiley started at left tackle was in the Super Bowl game where Mahomes was basically getting murdered on the field. We know Andrew Wiley is a great backup, and also he can play great starter roles on different positions of the line. We didn't see it pan out on the left tackle position. Again, this is just training camp. They're seeing who can fit what role the best. If he can improve at left tackle, that would be very great to see. And then you go into your second stringers, which you had Jerron Christensen playing right tackle, and then you had Darian Kennard playing left tackle, which was kind of vice versa of what we thought we would see too. We thought Christensen would take that left tackle position for the backups, and then we thought Darian Kennard would take the right tackle. I'm not mad at it whatsoever, especially in the Darian Kennard's case, because I said, don't let Darian Kennard take your job, Orlando Brown, because I think he could be the stud at camp. We haven't heard too much on him. He has been mostly playing on the second string position, but to see him get some left tackle snaps means he is making his presence, because we all know that is the quarterback's like basically blind side. That's the big money position, and for him to get snaps, I know it's only on the second team, but for him to see that when he basically plays right tackle is something very good to see early on in camp too. I think he can be a stud going forward. But jumping more into the Orlando Brown situation, I mentioned this time in and time out. I do not know how this holdout's going to pan. I do not know if it's going to go into next week. I do not know if it's going to go into preseason or the regular season. If I had to take a guess, maybe it goes past 1 week of preseason and then he comes back into camp. Right when camp's about to wrap up, preseason number 2, he starts getting, I'm not saying he's not in football shape, but football shape and regular shape, as I mentioned before, is two different type of beasts. But that's why you need to be with your team. You need to get that continuity. You need to get that rhythm down. That's why this time is very important diving into September. I would hope the latest is like preseason 2, because if he comes back like the last week of preseason and he thinks he's going to jump in a week 1 role, and let's say someone has showed out in the left tackle position, I do not know if Coach Reed will put him back on the field that quickly. Definitely if he's not up to the standard. So it's going to be interesting to see when Orlando Brown comes back and how long this holdout goes, because it definitely puts a hole on this line for the Kansas City Chiefs. But they do have some sort of depth. I'm not saying it's the best type of depth, but Coach Reed has mentioned that he does love the line and he loves the kind of depth that's behind it. So We will take his word for it, and we just hope the improvement keeps going on throughout training camp. As we dive into the key injury updates, this one really got to me and all of Chiefs Kingdom because this is someone we are rooting for who will make the roster and make a huge impact on this team. And it is Jody Fortson. Apparently he went down with a quad injury and he was carted off the field. We don't have any further updates. Coach Reed said we will get more on Monday. I'm hoping for nothing too serious. If bright side of any of this was he was carted in the front in the passenger seat and not on the back. So there's a little light to that because we know if he's on the back, that's literally like a really, really bad injury. But to sit next to the person driving you off, that kind of gives you a glimpse of ray of like maybe it's not as bad as what it could seem. That's what I'm hoping for because like I mentioned, Jody Fortson, he has huge, huge potential in this offense and he will be a key asset when healthy. And definitely recovering from this Achilles injury. Hopefully this is not a huge leg injury that can derail his season again because there's huge potential there. And as I mentioned, it is a quad injury, so we'll have to see what the updates are on Monday. But I'm hoping for nothing but the best, and it's just a short injury stay. But also, too, another injury update we do have. Nothing huge, but Jerick McKinnon gave us an update on that he had a sports hernia surgery throughout the offseason. That kind of sidelined him for a little bit and probably prolonged him signing with the team. He also did mention that he had other suitors, but he knew all along that he probably was going to come back with the Kansas City Chiefs because that's where he felt like it was home and that he was most comfortable with. I'm excited to see Jerick McKinnon back in this offense. I don't know what type of role he will play because this running back room is loaded. When you go from a CEH to a Ronald Jones, Jerick McKinnon, Pacheco even had first team reps today. And then you seen Ely on the second team. He had like a 75-yard touchdown. This running back group, even though it doesn't have that much experience or like that much, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but star power. There we go, where people will be like, a go-to number one guy. They got huge depth there and they got huge potential. It's going to be scary to see how this running back room is. I think Jerick McKinnon, he might be fighting for a number 2 role or maybe just a straight receiving back with Ronald Jones. We'll have to see how that progresses throughout training camp. I think CEH holds that number 1 spot until he's proven otherwise. And speaking of CEH, I don't know. There's something about him where he just looks more explosive in this camp. I know he started the camp on PUP, but right now, every play I see him take, it's like there's a different burst with him too, and it's exciting to see, and I hope that translates into the regular season because there's a lot of doubters on him, and I'm still a believer, and I still believe he can have a huge bounce back year. I'm praying for the best for him, and I hope he can correct all the doubters and prove them all wrong. Before closing out this video, you know I had to mention it. Rookie Sky Moore again made his presence known in camp with another like 50-yard plus catch where he knew how to turn his body around and make a huge play on the ball over Justin Reed. This kid, you could tell every day as camp progresses, he gets better. And I always mention, I do not know how rookies fare with the Kansas City Chiefs because you know they don't tend to hit the field right away. They don't hit the field until maybe like October or November. But it seems like Sky Moore is way ahead of schedule and he will be making plays for the Kansas City Chiefs in September. And I'm excited to see it. It's crazy to see how fast his growth has been. It's crazy to see how he can his ball control, how he can basically pinpoint the ball in the air, his release, his footwork. He's got a lot to learn, but also too, he's way ahead of most rookies in this league, I believe, and it's exciting to see. And it's also exciting to see the trust he is building with Mahomes right now. He might be the number 2 receiver on the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not putting no slight on McCole Hardman, but he's making huge plays. And yes, that means I'm putting Juju at number 1. He's having a camp like no other. And if he's healthy, he might be one of the best receivers in the league. That is something for a lot of people to watch out on. And it's going to be exciting to see once football season takes place. But with that, I'm going to close this video out as the Kansas City Chiefs did wrap up camp for this week of week 1. But before I do, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video. I am checking out. Y'all take care.